Garry, are you ready?
I'm ready. Very much so.
I have a quote for you, and it is, life isn't about the amounts of breaths you take, it's about the moments that take your breath away. So I walked into that room out there, and I was like, oh wow. Wait till you see the lady that's about to come down the aisle to you. Would you like to be all upstanding, please?
Tonight, she hears only whispers of some quiet conversation. She's coming in from very flight. Moonlit wings reflect the stars that guide towards salvation. I stopped an old man along the way, hoping to find some old forgotten words or ancient melodies.
And I was just too short, wasn't it? There's a flower thrower there who's getting all excited, and then the aisle ran out. Now do you want to hold his hands? I'll stand over here for a second, and you guys can look at one another lovingly, because I've got a few official things that I need to say first, all right? Check him out in his outfit, see if it's actually a good decision or not. I have already met most of you here this afternoon. Some of you I've known for years, and others I've just been fortunate enough to meet today. But I do need to introduce myself formally to all of you under the laws of Australia. So my name is Christina Morrissey, and I'm here today in the capacity of civil celebrant. And in that capacity, I'm duly authorised under the laws of Australia to join two people in matrimony. We have found two people. Now, Garry and Kerryn, before you're joined in marriage today, in my presence and in the presence of all the witnesses that are here, I need to remind you of the solemn and binding manner of the relationship into which you are entering into. Marriage in Australia, according to law, is a union of two people entered into the exclusion of all others voluntarily for life. It's a union of two people who find in one another something which they just cannot live without. Now I'm crying first, that's wrong, isn't it? Oh dear. Right. So, the 1st of May 2021. It is going to be remembered by all of us here for a number of reasons. Let us go through them. It is the day that we all realised just how little white we actually had in our wardrobes. It's the day that we realised that sneakers actually are special going out shoes. It will be the day before the Derby where Freo smashed the Eagles. Now, despite what that statement may have triggered in your head today, Garry, the real reason for this day being remembered for so long by all of us here is the result of a love match that will last for more than one season. It's the day two people say I do to their happily ever after. Now, they could have done it quietly, couldn't they? They could have just slipped off somewhere. That wouldn't have been Garry, though, would it? To have you all with them, to share this special occasion, means a lot to them. And Lynn and Lauren, wherever you are out there in the big wide world, will only mention COVID once today, but we would have loved to have had you here with us as well. Each and every one of you here means so much to these two in their past, in their present, and you're going to mean a lot to them in their future as well. Thank you so much for being part of this today. Now, with that in mind, I have a special job for all of you today, not just flower throwing and holding on to rings and holding on to vows. Your job is to support these two in the future going forward. So I'm going to ask you all a question, and I need an honest answer from you all. Will all of you here today do everything in your power to help these two in their marriage as they go forward, to support them? And if you do, can you say, I will?
I will.
Right. You can all stay for drinks afterwards. Right. How did we get here today? I found a beautiful poem when I was looking for bits and pieces for this wedding today, and it's by a fellow called J.M. Storm, and he wrote, I always wanted you, even when I didn't know what I wanted, even before I knew you. You were the chapter that I didn't know the words to, but I always knew existed. And when I finally found it, I began to read. I knew I was home. So there is a text somewhere in cyberspace that simply says, I think I just met the girl I'm going to marry. The author was Garry, fresh from an encounter at a coffee shop close to his work. It wasn't his regular coffee shop, because if 1982 on Rockaby Road had been, The text possibly would have been dated a lot earlier than June 2018. But life happens at its own pace. Our couple could, in fact, as Garry pointed out in his now infamous 50th birthday speech, have met up at any time over the past, no, let's go 20, that would have been bad otherwise. But if they had, we would have been missing 6 very, very special players on this team today, and we wouldn't have been without them for anything. On that day in June 2018, Garry happened to be in a fortuitous position to see the woman who'd once turned down a date with international heartthrob 007. It's true. He was lucky she turned around. Lucky she talked to him. And when I hear them talk about this moment, I'm reminded of a quote. When I saw you, I fell in love, and you smiled because you knew. 3 years later, if you ask Garry, he can still recall exactly what Kerryn was wearing on that day and what her hair looked like. Garry?
Yes, I absolutely can.
What was it?
She was a long, beautiful blonde with wearing a tanned jacket,
Correct.
which went right down to her knees, below her knees.
That's right, details. It was all about the details. And while it was a nice jacket, was it not?
It was.
It wasn't really the jacket you were after, was it? No. It was what underneath that captivated him. No, we're talking the whole person. Admittedly, according to Garry, children, cover your ears. Good. The soft bits were quite alluring as well. They talked. They kept talking. Come back, James. Now, come back now. They talked, and they kept talking. And while he wasn't successful in finding out where she worked on that first encounter or where she lived, he did manage to walk away with her phone number. Even though I thought that was interesting because now Kerryn is a world karate champion after all, but she didn't want to reveal all her details just in case. Garry used that phone number later that night after the text to you, Nathan. Where's Nathan? Where'd you go? So after that text to you, Nathan, he used that phone number. He texted Kerryn, not to ask her for a date. It was just simple stuff like pictures of his bolognese sauce simmering. Kerryn's most vivid takeaway from those texts was the fact that your declaration you were making a huge pot of bolognese sauce to take away with Nathan and the kids. Now that's not a line you'll possibly find in any dating column. Tell a potential woman that I can cook bolognese. And I thought it was a curious thing to let Kerryn know. Kerryn thought it was a curious thing for you to let her know as well. But
It was a good pot.
yeah, I thought about it. Apparently, it was to prove his self-sufficiency, his potential domesticity as a mate. You know? As he indicated to that brother in his brief text, he needed to move pretty quickly. He'd met the one, he had to woo her, cook some mean bolognese sauce. That's it. Lucky 007 didn't use that line. Now, where do you go to from coffee? Official date 1 started at the Cot Hotel. Okay. Garry was early. He secured a couch near the fire. He was obviously optimistic. He was wearing jeans with a nice pair of shoes. Kerryn was wearing jeans. She'd paired them with a pair of trainers. Exactly. Again, 3 years on, he remembers those little details about her. But Kerryn wasn't really out to impress. She'd been happily single for a few years. She was more than slightly independent. But I don't think you look too bad, actually. Possibly the footwear choice was made in case the date wasn't as good as the phone conversations or the texting, so she could make a speedy getaway. So as it turned out, though, those drinks at the cot expanded and they turned into a fantastic dinner at El Lido, and then it was time to go home. The rain happened, so maybe the trainers came in handy then. They did a bit of a run. And Garry used that opportunity. Who's heard this story? Yeah? Oh. Let me tell it again. To pull her into an alcove.
Out of the rain, of course.
Out of the rain, of course, yeah. Kerryn remembers him taking that opportunity. The umbrella went down and there's a lady called Betty Everett and she once sang a song which went, if you want to know if he loves you so, it's in his kiss. Do you remember that? Those of us over maybe 40 will remember. And a good relationship psychologist will tell you that a potential couple's first kiss can tell you so much about how a potential mate and if it's worth pursuing that relationship. Now, by the time they left that alcove, there'd been a few more kisses for research purposes. And by the time they were on their respective way homes, Kerryn had thrown caution to the wind told her where she worked, where she lived, and within 24 hours, Kerryn's workplace was the scene of a massive floral display of affection. When I asked them what their first impressions of each other were, Garry said, gorgeous, maybe out of my league, but hands again, right ears, soft in all the right places. Come back, James, come back. Kerryn immediately told me one of the first things that she loved about him was that he was so easygoing. She didn't mention his shoes, Garry, though. As nice as they were. Now, while Brenda and Bob, you were crossing your fingers, you were sitting back thinking, this has potential. Over at the in-laws, poor old Garry narrowly missed a penalty when he arrived late for a rugby date with Kerryn's dad. You just don't do that with a South African. But still it went on. Now, Ted, as Garry's mentor, you were stoking the flames of romance. In fact, the feedback I received was, when you were told about this relationship, and you confirmed it to me earlier on today, you said, and I quote, "We'll speed it up, life is short, you're not getting any younger." Some may have thought that a bit rash, but in hindsight, you've retained your supreme mentor crown. You were spot on. So what's that saying? When you meet the person you want to spend the rest of your life with, you want the rest of your life to hurry up and start as soon as humanly possible. They did. The house was purchased with the sole aim of creating a home, not just for them, but for their family. There was never any question about that. The purpose of this house was to provide a haven where all their children felt at home. Are the six of you happy? Do you come through that door and know that you're welcome? Yeah. So Kerryn and Garry, when I asked you both why this works, why you're so content, I got almost 2 carbon copy answers from both of you. It was like to me like they'd almost been together for 50 years. They said, it's a relationship where you have trust, where you respect one another's goals, where you feel loved and cared for, and we're creating a family home for the 2 of you and the kids so they feel safe and loved is paramount. That was the answer I got from both of you. Garry, Kerryn says you bring a calmness to her life she hasn't had before. She loves your character, the way you give your time so generously and easily to everyone. You have the ability to make everyone feel special, no matter how busy you are, and she cannot imagine falling asleep at night without your arms around her. She is home. And Kerryn, when I asked Garry when he knew you were the one, he actually said he couldn't think of a moment from when he met you that he didn't think that way. I don't think those trainers would have helped you to run fast enough from him.
Still would have caught her.
He said the conversation and the relationship just flowed right from the start. Nothing the other needs has been too hard. He loves the way you laugh at and with one another. How as a team, you just don't sweat the small things. I think from the moment that you left Alido that night, he was secretly planning this day. I asked him why he can't live without you, and because he says he's found his soulmate, the person that absolutely gets him. Let's make this official. All right? Grab hold of your hands, you two. So you have been making informal commitments to one another since you met. The vows that you are going to make today are a way of saying to one another, you know all those things that I promised, I hoped and dreamed? Well, I mean it, every single word of it. So you look at one another right now, and you remember this point in time. This is the start of something really, really special. Are you ready to make your vows? All right, Garry, will you take Kerryn to be your wife, to love and respect her, be honest with her, and stand by her through whatever may come as you share your life together?
I do.
And Kerryn, will you take Garry to be your husband, to love him, respect him, be honest with him, and stand by him whatever may come as you share your life together?
I do.
All right. Garry and Kerryn have written vows and promises to one another today. Who has Kerryn's? Get that one over? So what we're going to do is, you get to hold it. You get to hold it. Now, you hold this one, and you hold the microphone.
Courtney, Scott, Tay, and Charlie, thank you for sharing your dad with James, Tanner, and me. Thank you for allowing me to become part of your lives. I love him with all my heart. I promise I will love and support you in every step that you take in your lives. Garry. I promise to be by your side forevermore. I promise to nurture your goals and ambitions, to support you through misfortunes and to celebrate your triumphs. I promise to always strive to meet your needs, not out of obligation, but because it delights me to see you happy. I promise to support the dockers and attend through the good and the bad seasons. I promise to respect you, admire and appreciate you for who you are, as well as the person you wish to become. I promise to show you every day that I know how lucky I am to have you in my life. I promise to love you deeply and truly because it's your heart that moves me, your head that challenges me, your humour that delights me, and your hands I wish to hold until the end of my days.
So Kerryn, can you repeat after me? I call upon these persons here present
I call upon the persons here present
to witness that I, Kerryn Dawn Kruger,
to witness that I, Kerryn Dawn Kruger,
take you, Garry Darren Hasler,
take you, Garry Darren Hasler,
to be my lawful wedded husband,
to be my lawful wedded husband,
my lover and my best friend.
my lover and my best friend.
And now we swap it over. And take that one. Get the microphone.
I can see. few words that you might know from the song. All your love, it keeps me safe. All your love completes me. All your love, it makes me stay. You're the love I needed. It may sound a bit better if I'd sung it, but you know that I don't sing very well. It's hard to express how much I love you and what I feel about you. There's been so many times that I've looked across at you and just thought I'm the luckiest man alive. You are my best friend, and you know from the first moment I saw you, I've been in love with you. And so I promise to love you and to be the best husband I can be, to kiss you goodnight and good morning no matter what, to hold you tight and protect you when things just don't go our way, to encourage you to grow, to do the things that are important to you, to be there as support for you whilst we bring up James, Tanner, Tane and Charlie, and not so much Scott and Courtney anymore in our home, to put aside time for us to travel the world until we're old and wrinkly, and of course to take that trip to New York for New Year's Eve. And, Kerryn, to allow you to accompany me, Garry, to the MCG Melbourne when Frere win the first flag.
All right. Can I have that one? There you go. Now, repeat after me, please. I call upon these persons here present
I call upon these persons here present
to witness that I, Garry Darren Hasler,
to witness that I, Garry Darren Hasler,
take you, Kerryn Dawn Kruger,
take you, Kerryn Dawn Kruger,
to be my lawful wedded wife,
to be my lawful wedded wife,
my lover and my best friend.
my lover and my best friend.
Now we have the exchange of rings, which have been kept safe, are they not? All right. So rings may look simple, but there's actually a real beauty in them, as you would know. But your rings are more special than the ones that you see that are ready for purchase, because these rings are viewed with all that's precious between the two of you. And in wearing them, you're going to be constantly reminded of the promises that you're making today, of the optimism, of the pride and the joy. And I'm going to ask each of you, one to the other, to place the rings on your fingers, not only as a sign to everyone that you're a husband and wife, but also, more importantly, as a symbol of those promises and those vows that you're making verbally today. So every time you see it, every time you feel it, you'll remember this moment in time. Garry, would you like to go first? And who has? Right, James, you've done a good job here. Remember that. Whether we go over the proper finger and repeat after me. This ring I give you, I promise.
With this ring, I give you my promise
That from this day forward,
that from this day forward,
I will give you,
I will give you my love,
and you shall not walk alone.
and you shall not walk alone.
I have no greater gift to give.
I have no greater gift to give.
As your love is my anchor,
As your love is my anchor,
and your trust is my strength,
and your trust is my strength.
may my heart be your shelter,
May my heart be your shelter,
and my arms be your home.
and my arms be your home.
As this ring has no end or beginning,
As this ring has no end or beginning,
so shall my love for you be.
so shall my love for you be.
As I place it on your finger,
As I place it on your finger,
I give you all that I am.
I give you all that I am.
And all that I shall become.
And all that I shall become.
It's been a hot day.
Do it, see, she's independent. Do it yourself. Right.
I had one thing to do.
Right. Ring for Garry. With this ring I give you my promise.
With this ring, I give you my promise.
From this day forward,
From this day forward,
I will give you my love,
I will give you my love,
and you shall not walk alone.
and you shall not walk alone.
I have no greater gift to give.
I have no greater gift to give. As your love is my anchor, and your trust is my strength.
May my heart be your shelter,
May my heart be your shelter,
and my arms be your home.
and my arms be your home.
As this ring has no end or beginning,
As this ring has no end or beginning,
so shall my love be with you.
so shall my love be with you.
As I place it on your finger,
As I place it on your finger,
I give you all that I am.
I give you all that I am,
Good luck, and all that I shall become.
and all that I shall become.
It is forming the circle of love that gathers in the whole family. It is speaking words of appreciation and demonstrating gratitude in thoughtful ways. It is having the capacity to forgive and forget. It is giving each other an atmosphere in which each can grow. It is a common search for the good and the beautiful. It is not only marrying the right person, it is being the right partner.
Now, Garry and Kerryn, you've both come here openly and freely. With love in your hearts, you've made special promises to each other. You've sealed your union with the giving and the receiving of rings. You've signed paperwork as well. So, Garry and Kerryn, it gives me much pleasure to use the authority vested to me according to the laws of Australia to declare you both husband and wife. Look away, Josie. Right, worth living. Congratulations, you two. Thanks.